Hi, so for this film review, I did it on Fatal Attraction. Who are the main characters in the film? So we have the main character, the main deviant character being Alex Forrest. Dan Gallagher is the man who is married to Beth Gallagher, but he has an affair with Alex. Ellen is Beth and Dan's daughter. She's very young, I would say about 3 years old. Jimmy and Hildy are friends of Beth and Dan. They do lots of couple dates, and Dan also works with Jimmy. Joan and Howard Rogerson are Beth's parents. They're who Beth and Ellen hang out with a lot when Dan's busy working. They also are the ones that have Beth and Dan decide to move to the country to be closer to them, so that they can help out Beth with Ellen. When the film begins, how do we know the main character is happy? She comes off as very confident. Here we are speaking about Alex, the main deviant character. We can tell she's happy because, well, at least seems to be, because we first see her at the dinner party where Dan and Jimmy are hanging out, and they both notice her instantly and are talking about how beautiful she is and all that stuff. She's clearly the prettiest girl in the room. She knows it. She's walking around by herself. Even though she's by herself, she's very confident. She's just giving guys a cold shoulder. All the guys are trying to hit on her. She seems very happy. She also seems like a very successful businesswoman. She dresses very, very nicely, wears expensive clothes, or at least looks like she wears expensive clothes. Who or what does the main characters want? So, skipping ahead a little bit, Alex and Dan have a weekend affair. His wife and Ellen are gone for the weekend. They first start by meeting at the office while they're working on a project together. And then it's pouring out. They decide to get a drink together, and then it escalates from there, and they end up spending the whole weekend together, being very physical, having lots of sex, and all that stuff. You can tell that Alex is starting to get a little more attached than just having a weekend fling. As you can see, Dan is having a great time, the physical aspect, but you can tell he really doesn't see anything past that weekend. Although Alex, I don't think, thought that. Skipping ahead, what mindset or philosophy does the character develop to deal with their depression? Well, she kind of uses self-harm. So when Dan finally decides to leave and get back home before his wife and daughter get home, she kind of freaks out. She doesn't want him to leave because she knows she probably won't see him again. So she decides, when Dan's finally getting dressed and getting up to leave, she decides to slit both of her wrists. She did a huge cut right there on both of her wrists. And she's bleeding all over Dan, and Dan helps her, of course, stays with the night with her to make sure she's okay. But you could clearly tell she did that for attention to get him to stay. She does this many times. That's how she gets Dan to call her back a couple times before she goes absolutely crazy. She just keeps telling him about how much she cares about him and how she just wants to be able to talk to him still, even if she can't see him, just to have him call. And he clearly can tell he just admits to it so that he can get out of her house and leave. You can clearly tell he doesn't plan on calling her back anymore. But again, she doesn't see it. She doesn't know that. She really thinks he's going to call her back. What crime does the main character commit? So she commits several crimes. Once Dan finally is upfront with her and tells her, like, I don't want anything to do with you anymore. I don't want to talk to you. I don't care that you're pregnant, because he gets Alex pregnant, or so we think. And he just basically tells her, like, I'll pay for an abortion, but other than that, I'm going to live with my family, and I don't care about you, basically. That's when she really gets sent over the deep end. Of course, going back to like this, the other question about the traumatic scene that makes the character to become deviant, this is it. This is when she becomes absolutely crazy, is once he finally tells her the truth that he doesn't like her, he doesn't care about her. He had a great weekend with her, but that's all. He never wants to see her again. That's when she goes off the deep end and goes absolutely ballistic. she just can't deal with it. Going back to that, some of the articles that I watched and read about traumatic events, there was one where the YouTube video that infidelity trauma. Although he was infidel, had the infidelity with his wife. I looked at this as their relationship, as Alex and Dan's. So, putting it in that perspective, Alex was put into fight or flight mode, as the psychologist talked about. When you go through a traumatic event like heartbreak, you have a biological reaction in your body of either fight or flight. So with Alex's case, she decided to fight. So she was not going to let this man go. She was going to do whatever it took, no matter what, to get Dan. So she starts by totaling Dan's car, setting it on fire. The whole thing's gone, totaled, and Dan knew it was her because he could see how crazy she was starting to get. After that, she kidnaps Ellen. So this is right after Dan finally tells his wife, Beth, about the affair. And he tells Alex, leave my family alone. This is not going to happen anymore. My wife knows you have nothing to hold over my head now. And at first, she starts by killing the family bunny and leaving it in a boiling pot for when they got home. And that's the reason why he told his wife what happened, because he knew, she was starting to get dangerous. And that's after that is when she went and kidnapped Ellen and took her for the day and then returned her, just to show that she still had power. Even though he told his wife, she still had power over him, was basically what she was trying to do, in my opinion. And then she comes in, of course, she commits breaking and entering when she kills the bunny and puts it in a boiling pot in their kitchen. And then she really went off the deep end when she broke into their home and came after Beth with a knife. They had a scuffle on the floor back and forth. And then Dan finally hears it and runs in there and has a fight with Alex and is wrestling her and holding her underwater. And when he thought she was dead, he finally let go and sat there and was just in shock, total shock. And then all of a sudden she reemerges from the water and wasn't dead and tries to go after him with a knife. And that is when Beth steps into the room and had the family's gun and shot her and killed her. And that was the end. But yeah, that was the pretty crazy part. Those are all the crazy crimes that she committed just because he left her. Who are the victims of the criminal deviant? Well, there's a lot of people that became victims because of Alex. But I would say the main victims would be Beth and Ellen. I say this because Dan cheated on his wife. He made a huge mistake that he is a victim because of all the crazy shit she actually did afterwards, but he's not the main victim in my eyes. It's Beth and Ellen. Beth and Ellen were put through the ringer because of Alex and because of Dan's choice to have an affair. Beth is the biggest victim, I would say, because she has to go through now that infidelity trauma. Not only that, but having her family lives put in jeopardy right in front of her eyes. She's gone through so much. And Ellen, of course, although she's young and hopefully she'll forget about it, she was very traumatized. She saw most of the stuff that happened, most of the crimes that Alex committed. And her mom and dad yelling, of course. And then Dan, I would say, is a victim as well, because although he did cheat and he is not the victim in that aspect, it's all the crazy stuff that Alex did. So he is a victim because she did almost kill him. But going on to the next question, how does the filmmaker depict the victims of the crime? So I would say I didn't really like the way they depicted Dan, because they made him seem like a victim from the get after Alex started going crazy, before she got actually violent. They depicted him kind of as a victim, just because of her threatening his marriage and threatening to tell his wife. So I didn't really like that as much, but they did do a good job of depicting Beth and Ellen as being the victims, because They were showing how loving and how awesome they were to Dan, even though Dan went behind their backs and cheated on the family. So I did like the way they portrayed them. Especially when he got back that weekend, how his wife was, or when he was in the middle of cheating on his wife, when she called and he called her to tell her he was all right. She even told him, like, I left you food, I made you food so that you would have food when you came home from work, a nice home-cooked meal. So that was really, really sad to see for her and the family. But moving on, do the victims of the criminal deviant demonstrate post-traumatic stress or emotional disturbances? I would say definitely yes. Definitely Dan, of course Beth as well, and Ellen. Ellen had trouble sleeping because of all the stuff that Alex was doing. But Dan had PTSD because I watched the YouTube video, a conversation about PTSD, and she talks about how when something traumatic happens like this, you're usually triggered by certain things. In Dan's case, it was the ringing of the phone. You saw this in many scenes throughout the film, especially when they were moving into their new house because Dan was trying to get away from Alex. Every time the phone rang, his eyes went huge and he ran to answer it because he was afraid it was going to be Alex calling to tell his wife before he could. Also, you could see throughout the film, right before she came in and Alex tried to kill them all, you could see how many locks that they put on the doors of each of the houses, on each door of the house. They were definitely paranoid, Dan more than anybody, because he knew how crazy she actually was. And according to the scientific articles and lectures, what are some other courses of action the character could have taken? So going back to that part that I talked about, how your body has the biological reaction when something traumatic happens to you, like heartbreak, you can either choose fight or flight. So when Alex decided to pester Dan, she could have, after she told him she was pregnant, she could have given him some time to process everything and think about what he wanted to do instead of doing all these crazy things and committing all these crazy crimes. She could have easily gone and seen a counselor or gone and seen a family lawyer or something to try and figure out her options before she did all this crazy stuff. Because she could have filed lawsuits or sued him or something, use the law towards her advantage to try and make Dan pay for leaving her, instead of committing all these crimes and trying to kill both his wife and him. But that's about it about this film. Thank you.